I've been of the opinion that games journalists, or games journalists as we call them, are part of the issue with modern gaming in the direction that a lot of these games go, less ambitious and what have you. And I don't take any of them serious when it comes to how they review games, because you can't. Because they come from a perspective, them and people that generally stream it, or stream games, definitely variety game streamers, are coming from a perspective that is completely different from really the vast majority of gamers. A lot of that, and if you've watched, or rather the previous segments that we've done on this topic, y'all know how I feel about the game and accessibility, right? And how accessibility to me ruins games. And what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about with like settings changes for colorblind people. No, I'm talking about this idea that the game must be appealing to the widest demographic of people for the sake of trying to have a wide pool of a user base, which often comes with dumbing the actual game down, or it not being as complex, or it not being as competitive as what it should be, because it's trying to take into consideration the gamer who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Let's just be completely honest. And this is why you've gotten your games that steer away from the competitive aspect as if something's wrong with it. Definitely games that a lot of people think that they should just be required to be good at, or required to unlock all of the gear, or be able to complete every mission. God forbid that you can't do that. God forbid that you grew up in an era like where I did, where people had stacks and stacks of Super Nintendo and Genesis games, Sega Genesis games that they never ever completed because they simply were too hard. And nobody got offended at that, but now that is the case where that's people get offended by that, and people advocate for easier modes, and it's the accessibility aspect of gaming that I'm having a big problem with. We have another example for this with this bizarre article / review by PC Gamer, Sarah James of PC Gamer, when it comes to the new game, New World, which is the big MMO that is being put out by Amazon. Now, I wasn't interested in the game because it looks like a hash of what I've already seen, and it having the boring combat systems, unfortunately, that I see out of a lot of not truly live response, just not really a good live response action combat system, which I'm still waiting for out of an MMO, because a lot of them are gimmicky, like the Black Deserts, where the enemies are just retards and they don't really do anything. But hey, you can do all these round kicks and all of these extravagant moves and shit, but it's not a true live response combat system that is brawler fighter kind of built within it. But let's listen to what I'm gonna read some of the things and what this weirdo had to say about it, which really embodies this generation's view of gaming. Let's look at this. Jumping into a new MMO for the first time should be exciting. You can't beat the buzz of making it through the introductory quest when the map opens up, or when the world opens up, before you get to explore a vast new world. Unfortunately, I'm 8 hours in the new world and I haven't had that feeling, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, yeah, if the game doesn't live up to an expectation, it doesn't. But listen to what she says about it. You start with the basic sword and shield, which would be fine if the combat and movement in general didn't feel so clunky. Again, legitimate criticism, something that we see out of a lot of MMOs and online RPGs. Your dodge ability doesn't seem particularly effective either, though that may improve as you upgrade specific gear. In the meantime, I guess that's why you have a shield. I'd rather play as a ranged class, though, and I was relieved to find a bow quite quickly. But much like Fraser's dilemma of needing bullets for his musket, I found I'd need arrows if I wanted to use it. The world is really beautiful, though you won't discover this until you leave the beach area where you first washed up, from abandoned farmsteads, all this blah, blah, blah. The massive ship in the middle of town gives the place real character, and more importantly, gave me some incentive to play to see what other settlements had to offer. On my way back to town, I abandoned the idea of using a bow purely because keeping track of arrow usage seems like a huge pain. Oh my God. Imagine not having an infinite amount of arrows for your fucking bow and arrow in an online RPG. I decided to concentrate my efforts on using a fire staff instead. There were plenty of quests around the settlement, and I was introduced to the intensive crafting system, giving me a use for a vast amount of materials I'd acquired. But I soon discovered that I'd need a very specific material to craft my fire staff. Oh, amazing. So I resigned myself to continue with the sword and shield for the time being. Okay, backtrack here. This chick didn't want to use the bow and arrow because she had to have arrows for the damn thing. Then she didn't want to use the fire staff because that required her to craft other elements. And of course, you need other special certain resources to craft certain items. Remind you, this is a person who claims to play MMOs and is familiar with the concept of a role-playing game. And apparently that's just too much. God forbid you have to, I don't know, play the game and get resources to build special items. Quest sent me to Light Hope's settlement, but it was painful to venture into areas inhabited by the corrupted. And I'm sure my awkwardness with the weapons didn't help. Enemies spawned with frightening regularity. And searching for quest items in highly populated areas highly populated by enemies means a lot of work. Poor you. Especially if other players aren't around to help thin them out. One particular quest required me to kill and loot a named enemy located in a big tent within the corrupted nearby. I had to kill at least 3 or 4 of these. That's it, 3 or 4 to reach my target. But by the time I engaged him, the others started to respawn. So you probably weren't high enough level. That's the game mechanic probably telling you that. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you're not good enough. So naturally I died. Poor you, dying in an MMO. When the same thing happened the next time, I learned my lesson and ran away, which is, you come back, that's what happens. You go away somewhere, you build yourself up, you get better, and then you go complete it. This is just fundamental, a fundamental game mechanic for a role-playing game. On the next attempt, I grouped up with another player and we both died. So take the hint. Frustrated, I decided to abandon the quest and head back to town. All right, so we got backtrack up until this point. This player didn't want to use the fire staff, didn't want to use the bow and arrow because those required too much work. She didn't want to do this little quest. She said bowed out to playing the quest because too much work. This is when, to my surprise, I found a fire staff in my bag. Where did that come from? Excited for the first time since logging in, I went to equip it only to discover that I needed to be level 13. Okay, that's fine. I was a level 11. I could do this. No, having a weapon that is above your level requirement. Not anything particularly new about online RPGs. After looking through some of the quests on the town projects board, I settled on some reasonably tame looking fetch quests nearby. I was hugely resentful that the game was forcing me to grind levels so early just to equip my weapons. Poor you that the game was requiring you to play it to get get better weapons. I mean, it isn't now MMO, like the grind's going to be a part of it. So early just to equip weapon of choice, so I opted for gathering or crafting quest. Though a quest to kill 20 boars seemed pretty chill, so I picked that too. I'm almost at a level 13, and now in hope to begin my new world journey properly and in the way I want to play it. I'm fully aware that it's too early to judge the game as a whole, but I usually find some excitement to push me through the early stages of most MMOs. So far, New World just feels incredibly grindy and frustrating, made worse by certain weapons seemingly locked behind level requirements. I'm sure I've barely brushed the surface of what Amazon's MMO has to offer. I just didn't expect to have to do so much so early on in order to unlock the playstyle I might enjoy. And this is Sarah James that wrote this. She's spends most of her time immersed in MMOs. So a person that likes to be immersed in MMOs seems to have a problem with MMO basics. If that ain't a damn representation of modern games journalism and modern really gaming in basically in its entirety, is I don't know what else. You're not going to get a better explanation of someone basically having issues with a fundamental concept of a game, not centered around its overall design, more so because that requires them to play that, and maybe in some instances have to actually think about it. See, this has been my issues with the accessibility thing, because I get it. There are certain people who look at fun, right? Because that's what they say that the gaming experience is supposed to be about, fun. But fun is a useless, meaningless term when it comes to gaming. You know why? Because fun is subjective. But unfortunately, there are people that think fun equals no struggle, little to no struggle in gaming. Right. So this is why easy modes and stuff like that is something that is attracted to them. To them, that is fun. Having to think, having to actually be good at something, being having difficulty locking you basically behind certain items in a game because you can't get that quick dopamine fix. That isn't fun to them. That's a bore. That's what I've always hated this term, grindy. Definitely when you start to really get in the nitty gritty of what that absolutely means. I hate to see games journalists saying, well, this game Hades it can be a little difficult. So the fuck what, man? Like, does every goddamn game have to be built for the dumbest motherfucker, the lowest common denominator, shooting for them, and the entire game has to be built around carrying their fucking hands through it? Like, believe it or not, there are those of us that appreciate complexity, difficulty in gaming, and that is fun for us, right? Because, for example, gamers like me, I love the thought exercise of games. I love the, when I have to play it, it's not just I know people like to attribute Souls to it, but it's not something that is exclusive to Souls. A lot of games have built into patterns and stuff that you have to learn to pick up in order to be able to get to a point to where you're completing a certain aspect. That is fun to me. Definitely in online games where I have to, from a cooperative standpoint, I have to work with someone in order to beat a certain element of the game. You see this a lot in certain MMOs. You're playing raids, dungeons, and stuff where it's like this person has to hold their own weight, and you have to ensure that they do it. There's a timing element of it. That's stuff that a lot of us appreciate, and that's fun. It may have me to a point to where sometimes I want to throw my controller at the screen because I'm a competitor, but that's still overall fun. Fun isn't mindlessness, and unfortunately, a lot of people seem to think that. And being slightly inconvenienced is bad. It's grindy. That's the term that they use, which there's an appropriate thing for that. But I hate to hear people talk about definitely games that are online RPGs where it's like anything like not being able to to get to the end game content in fucking a day is grindy to them, because of course you have to dopamine, right? You have to be able to complete it. You have to be able to get to the end game content as quick as you possibly can, because God forbid you spend $60 fucking for a game and actually, I don't know, be able to play it for a longer extended period of time. And this is where you get these excuses. Well, I'm not a pro gamer. I'm not a streamer. I can't play 8 hours a day. What the fuck that got to do with me? You think you the only motherfucker with a job? You think you the only motherfucker with children? What the fuck that got to do with me? I only have 30 minutes of time to play the game when I'm drinking White Claws before I go out to the bar on a Friday night. Like, what the fuck that got to do with me? Play the game. It'll be there. It'll be there when you get back. Now, granted, some other people might be beyond you at some point because they actually, I don't know, sat down to play the game, but that ain't got nothing to do with them. That's your problem. But all of these aspects of gaming work together. And I think they have made for less ambitious products, games that try to shoot for the lowest common denominator, shy away from skill elements, shy away from competitive elements, shy away from even team cooperative. You have to be a competent player because they're afraid to gate something for the audience, for the person that's playing the game. I am not of the opinion that just because you play the game, you should be able to access every aspect of it, meaning that you should be able to complete every aspect. I'm not of that opinion. I never have been. Never have been. I have no problem with looking at a certain instance, no matter what type of game, and it's just a part that I can't get beyond, maybe the best gear in the game, because I'm simply not good enough. To some people, they clutch pearls, they cry about it. For me, it's like, well, I need to get better, or I'm just simply not going to be able to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But all these elements work together, and you get what we have right now with games journalists getting upset that an MMO plays like fucking one.